I'm Nisha DeGaring.
And I'm Doug Jessup. Everyone has a story. Stories have power. They help us understand each other.
And these stories deserve to be passed down. It is time for Family Heritage Stories.
Welcome to Family Heritage Stories, where we help people understand where they came from. Things like traditions, values, and culture.
How are those stories passed down from generation to generation? Through words, through deeds, through stories.
We all benefit from heroes among us. Now, they're going to say, it's just part of the job. But it's more than that. It's time for Hero Salute Stories. What I love about talking with you is because you're a kindred spirit when it comes to the power of stories.
Right.
And you've got some incredible stories. And one of my favorite things to do is, we support the military. A lot of come from a military family, and you do as well. But to be able to remember those people, and you have someone special in your life that served in the military, but more than a little. I mean, this guy was a rock star. So you know who I'm talking about. Let's
Of course, that's my grandpa, Lester Taylor. He had a passion always for trains. He was fascinated by trains. And back in that era, you had hobos who would hop trains and go all over the United States. Well, that sounded very nice and kind of romantic to him. So he started hopping Union Pacific trains. And he did go all over the U.S. and then eventually came back to Utah to kind of settle down. And he met my grandmother, and they got married, and he had been married to her for about a year. They had my mom, and he got shipped off to World War II. So he was in the Philippines, and he was also in Okinawa.
Wow.
And so he ended up with a Bronze Star, a Purple Heart, and a Medal of Honor for his service in World War II. And the Medal of Honor was just for being a good guy, basically. But I'm not even sure that's a correct title for it. It's red, and it basically meant that you were a good soldier. The Bronze Star occurred during battle, and he and his colleagues, Army folks, were headed over a hill, and they didn't know for sure what was on the other side. So they sent out a scout. So that's not uncommon in that era. But the scout got shot and was lying several hundred feet away in the mud and still alive. And they could see that he was still alive. And so he was instructed, well, the whole group of men was instructed that there needed to be a volunteer to go rescue this man. And without hesitation, my grandpa Lester agreed that it would be him. And he had a good friend, best friend named Estel. And he and Estel decided they would do this together. So they crawled out to this man through the mud. And he was writhing in pain, but still alive. And Estel was his cover, basically, as he loaded this soldier on his back and crawled back through the mud to get back to the rest of his troop. So he was with Estel, and all three survived, including the man who was terribly wounded. And for that, he received the Bronze Star. Now, the Purple Heart came in Ishima, which is a small island off of Okinawa, as I recall. And they were trying to take the airport. And it was a very, very bloody battle. And he was run through with a sword in that fight. And
okay, hang on. Okay, run through by sword. Okay, we're talking like a bayonet?
yes, it was a bayonet, and he had a scar that literally was from basically his breastbone down. Very, very serious injury.
Miracle he survived.
It is a miracle that he survived. And in the process of all of that, and because there were so many dead, they lost his dog tags somewhere along the way. And so no one knew who he was. So he was hospitalized for months as he was trying to recover, and for a very long time couldn't talk to anyone about who he was. So it took some time to actually identify him. Now his dog tags were found next to someone else who was also perished. So a letter went home to my grandma saying that he had died in battle. And so everybody mourned his death. It was very traumatic and very sad. And several months passed, and she, I can't agree with this, but she decided that maybe she needed some cheering up and that she should start dating.
Okay.
So she was actually out on a date when he came home from war.
Ooh.
Yeah, little tricky there.
Mhm.
And my mom was actually old enough to remember that occurring. She was under the table with a
Oh
cousin
my,
at that point.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
so in that awkward moment, the date decided it was time to leave. And, and so anyway, long story short, they patched things up, they stayed together, and they stayed married for several more years, had several more kids. Unfortunately, I think the trauma of battle and the damage done from her maybe being out
Yeah.
on a date
Mhm.
were, caused some trouble. And so eventually they did end their marriage and divorce, but he remarried a few years after that and lived a really great life. I mean, just a really good life. He was a good, solid individual. He kept his passion for trains alive. He became a conductor for Union Pacific Railroad.
Ah.
Had numerous model railroads that we used to play with as a kid, and was just a really upstanding individual, very cheerful despite all of that, great disposition, very friendly, and was just absolutely beloved. And always honored his country and honored his flag in a way that, he was the greatest generation. And I just remember standing in Pledge Allegiance with him once, and excuse me, and just hearing the reverence with which he said the pledge, and thought, I will never say the pledge again without echoing his loyalty and honor to this country with the same amount of passion and emotion. So to this day, I don't say it in rote. I don't repeat along with everyone else. And I try to add a little bit more to the pledge because I feel it on his behalf, I think, still to this day.
Thank you for joining us for this special episode of Family Heritage Stories. If you would like to help us continue with this great and important programming, please visit herosalute.stories.org.
But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little teacher. Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell. He says, I have been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester. And it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion. To the flag, our standard, O glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose. all divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
You know, there's a special bond between grandparents and grandkids.
Tell me a story about your grandma or grandpa. Tell me about your grandmother. One of your grandmothers.
Okie dokie. All right. The one I can't talk about died before when my father was only 8 years old. Tuberculosis. Common then. So the other one is Inez Holloway. Inez Cole Holloway out of Mississippi. And now some people call that Mississippi. But it's really Mississippi. Got that?
So what do you remember about her?
She is where I got my sewing talent from. I remember sitting with her treadle sewing machine and taking bits and pieces of fabric that was there that I made little dog clothes out of. And she showed me how to use a hand needle. So anyway,
Okay,
got me started, and I ended up majoring in clothing at the University of Tennessee.
There you go. Okay, so tell me about one of your grandfathers.
Well, let's see now. The grandfather on the Oval side was a dentist in Knoxville. He was born right behind Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, right in Sevier County. And the house is still there. And they were practically, all of them were, many of them were musicians. And there's a lot of professional musicians in my family. That's a trait that kind of carries through.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Broadcasting from Lanny Bernard Gallery, you're watching Family Heritage Stories. We'll be right back. Every veteran has a story that deserves to be remembered. At Family Heritage Stories, we collect, preserve, and share those personal experiences of our veterans. Your donations help us document and honor those veterans and their legacies for generations to come. Join us in ensuring that their legacies live on. Donate today at herosalutestories.org.
Austin Warwood, I was gonna tell you a joke about time travel. You didn't like it.
I'm Rick Steele, and you're watching Family Heritage Stories.
I'm Barb Smith, and I just want to tell you how great it is to work with Doug. Family Heritage Stories are uplifting and also really wonderful to share, and I'm so glad I had the opportunity.
You have the priceless gift of stories. Imagine capturing the voices, the wisdom, the humor of your loved ones. Talking from personal experience, I promise it will be cherished for generations. To schedule an interview with either yourself or one of your loved ones, contact Krista at fedorafoundation.org.
Have you ever wondered how an object becomes important enough to be passed down from generation to generation? Later in the show, we share one of our viewers' treasures remembered.
So, let me get this straight. You solved all our shipping problems with pigeons.
Carrier pigeons, sir.
Isn't this a little outdated?
No. These babies are equipped with GPS and night vision. This little guy's headed off to Cleveland.
Amazing. What about the big stuff?
That's been taken care of.
Let's switch to FedEx.
Everybody comes from somewhere.
What does heritage mean to you?
This is Doug Jessup. Welcome to this episode of Family Heritage Stories. With me today, the lovely Crystal Lee Flynn. Okay, all three names, just saying. So, Crystal, thanks for coming on today. The name of the show is Family Heritage Stories. What does heritage mean to you?
I believe heritage really defines who we are on many levels. It's our history. It's our family. It's where we come from. It's the stories that are passed down generation after generation. We grow up hearing around dinner tables or holidays, different family members talk about grandpa and grandma and uncle. And that shapes a lot of who we become, I believe, in our lives.
Now, you have, on the one side, you have some Hispanic heritage.
I do.
And you have some Native American heritage.
Yes.
Okay, and then on the other side, remind me?
English and Irish.
Okay. So now I'm going to tease you a little bit. Okay. Have you been to England or Ireland?
I have been to England, yes.
Okay. Do you know where in England your people are from?
No.
No idea. It's like, yeah, it's around there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's one of them. Okay. Have you then on the other side, have you been to either Mexico or Spain?
I have been to Mexico,
Okay.
and I've actually visited a little bit more on that side. I've visited the tribe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tell me.
So Yaqui is Y-A-Q-U-I is the name of the tribe. It's very small. The Mexican-American War decimated the majority of the tribe. And so the few that are still living are in Tucson, Arizona. So I went down there to actually try to find, out about my family. And there were so few records, and I had to have birth dates and full names, and I didn't have any of that information. So I simply spent time in the town and went to some of the cultural events and enjoyed my time there, but didn't get much in the way of actual information.
Okay. So what was the name of that line? Do you know?
Ayala was the last name on my mom's side, and that's her father's name. The grandfather would have been Ayala as well, but obviously we know that's not a Yaqui name.
How do you spell that?
Ayala.
Okay. Why were you looking for that connections with your Native American?
I think that where we came from is so important, and I've always had a deep desire to understand. And so it was really important to me to go down there and at least try to find out if I still had family, if there were connections that were living today, what their stories were, how they grew up. It was really important to me, and I was unhappy to find out that I didn't have any information, but it was really good.
Okay, now this is a question that gets real interesting, okay? Because I've chatted with people where you find out some real interesting stuff when you do DNA tests, okay? Have you by chance done a DNA test?
I have, yes.
Okay. Everything what you expected?
Yes.
Okay,
which was good, right?
checking, okay. Why did you do the DNA test and what did you find out?
It's so interesting that we have the science to tell us
Mhm.
what areas of the world we have come from. And mine was very consistent with what I expected. I had actually a little bit less of the Native American and Hispanic than I expected. I had more Native American, less Hispanic, but we did know partially that my grandmother came from Spain, one of my grandmothers on my mom's side, but there was actually a lot more Spanish in there than we expected. So perhaps some other descendants as well came from Spain.
With another episode of Family Heritage Stories with Crystal Lee Flynn, I'm Doug Jessup. We'll be right back.
You learn a lot about traditions, values, and culture when you travel.
It's time for Vacation Locations.
Hi, I'm Victoria with the Pigeon Forge Department of Tourism. Today, we're here at Dolly Parton Stampede to chat with the man who's been the host of the show for 24 years. Let's take a look as Jay shares what makes this dinner show such a family favorite in the Smokies.
If you've never seen the Stampede Show before, it is the most fun place to eat in the Smokies. Dolly guarantees it. So you'll come into our arena, you really kind of feel like you're just into a whole different world. So we can take our guests from the very beginning of the show. We set up this friendly regional rivalry between the North and the South, and then we open with this fantastic, spectacular opening where we've got all the horses riding around and everything going on. And then you get to enjoy this fabulous 4-course feast while you're enjoying the show. So you get a whole rotisserie chicken, hickory smoked pork loin, the creamy vegetable soup that everybody loves. But what's so great about it is while you're enjoying that dinner with your family, you get to see some of the best trick riders, Roman riders, and just incredible performers from all over the country, all right here in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. My role in the show is I'm actually the host of Dolly Parton Stampede, so I'm the guy that talks a lot and rides the big white horse, basically. I take our guests on the journey throughout the show, so I kind of set the scenes, introduce all the acts, sing a few songs, and just kind of keeps everything moving along and make sure everybody's having a great time. So of course my favorite part of the show, at the end of our show, we do this big patriotic finale. After all the rivalry and the competitions and everything else, we really kind of bring it home by letting us know that we are all Americans, whether you're from the North or the South or anywhere else. It really is all about unity. My most memorable moment here at Dolly Parton Stampede was actually getting to perform for Dolly herself. She actually came and saw our Christmas show one year, and then the very next spring came back and saw the regular show, and I got to host both shows. And being able to not only host the show and make sure everybody else was having a good time, I kept sneaking a peek at Dolly to make sure she was having a good time, and she was having a ball. So that, for me, is the highlight of my performing career, is getting to actually perform for the boss lady herself.
Dolly Parton Stampede has been entertaining guests for more than 3 decades now. From the equestrian acts, the friendly competition, and the foot-stomping music, there's truly something for everybody to enjoy here. Thank you, Jay, for the inside look, and we will see y'all back at Pigeon Forge soon.
Objects with stories are treasures remembered.
Most everyone in the United States descends from someone that immigrated here. What would you bring to remember your home country, knowing that you would probably never see your home country again? Ida Josephine Youngquist arrived in the United States in 1902. She brought with her this silver mesh coin purse. Inside were these special coins, including this Swedish krona from 1731 to remind her of home. Objects with stories are treasures remembered. Everyone has a story.
Sometimes those stories are told through music. It's our honor to be able to help people remember where they came from.
The Fedora Foundation supports the collection, preservation, and distribution of diverse stories of traditions, values, and culture, right here on TV and online as well at FamilyHeritageStories.org.
How do you want to be remembered? With another episode of Family Heritage Stories, I'm Nisha Dagarin.
And I'm Doug Jessup.